Hi everyone! Peace and blessing be upon you. Many people feel that the world after 2019 is completely different from before. Since then, they've felt lost, as if life's pace has accelerated to a point where most people can't believe 2024 is already ending. It's as if 2019 was the dividing year. But is this feeling real? Was the world before 2019 truly different? And why specifically that year? Welcome. I'm Loki. But before we begin, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch our videos as soon as they drop. Throughout history, the world has witnessed major events that reshaped life as we know it. Events like World War I and II, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the invention of the internet, and many more. These events were monumental and impacted the entire globe for decades, completely altering life's trajectory. However, one key thing about these events is that they didn't happen all at once. They were spread over long intervals, often decades apart. But when we look at the world specifically from 2019 until today, we realize that so many events occurred in rapid succession, impacting the world profoundly. And we're not just talking about 2 or 3 events here, we're talking about dozens. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the last 5 years, from 2019 to 2024, saw more significant events than the previous 50 years combined, politically, economically, with pandemics and global issues that swept across nations. This overwhelming pace of events is likely the reason why most people feel unable to keep up. 2020 began with a new term that would deeply affect our lives for years to come: COVID-19. It first appeared in Wuhan, China, and quickly spread from province to province before escaping China and sweeping across the world. COVID-19 infected over 700 million people globally and caused the deaths of more than 7 million. Entire populations were confined to their homes for months, and normal activities ground to a halt. The key takeaway here is that major events leave a lasting mark on our memories. We remember them vividly, and for most of us, the COVID pandemic was the biggest event we had ever witnessed. No media platform neglected to cover it. Daily updates on infections and death tolls dominated headlines. Governments, public spaces, and institutions shut down for extended periods and reopened under strict regulations. We lived like this for over 18 months. Because of this, the events of late 2019 and 2020 are etched in people's minds, giving the illusion that these years were very recent, not distant. Add to that the fact that lockdowns brought massive changes to daily life, both positive and negative. On the positive side, the concept of remote learning spread widely. Schools and universities had no choice but to adopt online education. This made education more accessible and encouraged many people to acquire new skills. For context, in 2019, only 36% of students globally used remote learning, but by 2020, this figure rose to 74%. Another positive outcome was the rise of freelancing and remote work. People no longer needed to travel to different cities for work. All they needed was an internet connection, a phone, and a laptop, and they could work from anywhere, a concept that was largely rejected before 2019. On the negative side, however, we saw the spread of short-form video culture through Shorts, Reels, and TikTok. This significantly impacted attention spans, especially among children and young people. Economically, the global situation deteriorated, with many people losing their jobs. Social distancing also caused feelings of isolation and loneliness, which increased anxiety and stress. Mental health issues escalated, and many people still struggle with the aftermath to this day. A research project conducted by Duke University on 5,000 people revealed that 40% of participants still experience moderate depression, while 25% suffer from severe depression, compared to their pre-2020 state. Similarly, a Brookings Institution survey of 1,000 people found that 30% of young respondents reported feeling like they've lost control over their lives and that time is passing without purpose. Other studies confirm that many people changed after COVID. They became less cooperative, less confident, and more anxious and emotionally unstable. But is this all just because of COVID? In reality, no. As we explained earlier, the past 5 years have been filled with significant global events, albeit less severe than the pandemic. Grab a pen and paper and count with me. Massive wildfires occurred at unprecedented scales in Brazil and Australia in early 2020, destroying 500 million animals. Floods and landslides struck Jakarta, Indonesia, and the Gulf states. The Antarctic recorded its highest temperature ever, an alarming development. Snow fell in Baghdad for only the second time in a century. Aswan, Egypt, recorded an unprecedented 50 degrees Celsius heat wave. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake hit Puerto Rico, the strongest in a century. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Turkey and Syria, claiming over 50,000 lives. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, warned that the global economy would shrink by 3% due to COVID lockdowns, marking the worst economic slowdown since the Great Depression. The World Trade Organization projected that global trade would decline more severely than during the 2008 financial crisis. Meanwhile, we faced an energy crisis and soaring oil prices. On top of all that, Brexit saw Britain leave the EU, and the US withdrew from Afghanistan after 18 years. Add to that the ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine, and, finally, the continuous struggles faced by our brothers and sisters globally. And then there were outbreaks of monkeypox, the black fungus in India, and dengue fever in Latin America. Technologically, we saw unprecedented advances in artificial intelligence, AI, which threatened to replace countless jobs in the near future. Experts in psychology note that when major global events happen in quick succession, people worldwide feel unsettled and unsafe. This constant state of anxiety about the unknown makes goals, priorities, and ambitions shift rapidly, even for those not directly affected by these events. Ultimately, this is why people have felt overwhelmed since 2019, as if they're unable to keep up with the rapid changes in the world. But to end on a hopeful note, compared to the catastrophic events in human history, the period we're living in now is relatively peaceful. Anyone who reads history deeply will recognize this. Before we close, let me share a few simple steps to find some calm and peace in your life. Reduce news consumption. You'll hear the news one way or another, so don't spend your entire day scrolling through it. Focus on your work, studies, and self-improvement. That's what will add value to your life. Commit to exercise, whether it's the gym or a specific sport. Spend more time with family and friends. Go out, change your environment, and recharge. Finally, read the Quran, say your prayers, and ask God for tranquility and contentment. That's it for today. Who made it this far? If you did, you're the real Loki. Drop us a like before you leave, so we know how many of you stuck to the end. And if there's a question that keeps you up at night, leave it in the comments and we'll answer it in a future video. Until next time, take care.